joining us.
Sure.
Let's get a feed like 40.
All right. Hey, everyone. We're going to get started. Feel free to come forward. For those, if anyone's watching at home, it's pretty quiet in here tonight, so we'll hang out. Nice.
It's got wheels for a reason.
All right. So, welcome, everyone. Welcome back to CocoaHeads for 2024. First meetup of the year. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So what's happening tonight? A bit of an overview. So I'm going to go through some housekeeping, go over some news updates, things like that. Have a very quick hiring segment as well. We have one talk from Amy tonight. Looking forward to that. And then because there's only one talk, there's no break during the event that you can sort of hang around for any socialising or chats you want to stick around for after that. So it'll be a relatively short meetup, but plenty of time to chat after. So Amy's talk is titled "The Music We Share with Friends." All right, so looking ahead, look about a year. So the plan for 2024 is to continue hosting most of our events here at Billu. It'll probably be similar to last year where there's one or two events we might host somewhere else. So I'll always keep Meetup up to date. So just check that at the start of sort of every month and also mention any venue changes in Slack. But for the most part, I think we hosted 11 events last year and 9 of them were here. I'd expect probably a pretty similar ratio this year. So our next event's on the 21st of March. And we're basically looking for talks throughout the rest of the year. So it doesn't have to be in March, but if you're interested in giving a talk, let me know. Slack's probably the best place to contact, and I'll put a link up soon. Let me know at one of these events. Send me an email. You can contact us through the website. There's heaps of ways. Even if you have an idea for a talk and you want to kind of run it by myself or Christian, we're happy to entertain those ideas and go from there. For those who don't know, CocoaHeads always runs on the third Thursday of the month. The only exception to that would be if there was a special event we were trying to tie in with, for example, WWDC. Sometimes we shift it around by a week, but the general rule is the third Thursday of the month. And similar to the venue, I'm pretty sure every event that was at Billu last year was on the third Thursday, and the other ones we might have shifted by a week. So, but it's always on a Thursday. All right, so it's my housekeeping. I'm Zach, and along with Christian, we run the meetup. So hello. And a massive thank you to Billu, our sponsor. So we're in Billu's offices, but they also sort of obviously catered the food tonight, provided us with the venue, but they also cover our ongoing costs like the website and the meetup hosting, which we really appreciate. So we have a code of conduct. It's available on the website. I'd encourage everyone to read it, familiarise yourself with it. Boils down to a few important points. They have to be respectful, be inclusive, and be aware. Any issues related to this, please speak to Christian or myself. So we have a Slack community. It's like an AU-wide, AU and ANZ-wide Slack group. Feel free to scan that code. I'll leave it up for a few seconds. But if you're interested in some of the channels that you might particularly be interested in, general is a good place for people asking questions. There's jobs if you're looking for work or if you're hiring. There's the Swift channel, which you often get some interesting Swift questions in. And of course, because we're Sydney, there's the Sydney channel. There's also a Sydney meetup channel. Don't really use that. The Sydney channel isn't big enough, isn't busy enough to split between the two channels. So I tend to stick things in Sydney and provide all the updates there. Not that there's too many. Anyone attending for the first time? Just a show of hands. Cool. Welcome. Round of applause. Hope you enjoy it. Hope I don't scare you off. Look, if you like what you see here tonight, I'd suggest checking out Melbourne CocoaHeads. I mentioned we run on the third Thursday of the month. They run on the second. Very good meetup, with excellent talks, and they also have a pretty good live stream, so you can watch from Sydney quite comfortably. So is anyone hiring or looking for work? Show of hands. Neil. Neil's come to give us your. No one looking for work. No one hiring. Okay. Yep. Feel free to. What are you looking for? What are you looking for?
Entry iOS role.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, not many of those around that I've seen.
Not, but if anyone happens to be hiring.
I've seen a few.
Okay.
LinkedIn's always a good option. Typically, a fair few good recruiters around these days as well. So, yeah, network, LinkedIn. You're already here, which means you're much better than a lot of people. So that's all good.
Yeah, so I'll keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Making assumptions about us, Amy.
Also, he couldn't be here tonight, but Aaron sometimes attends CocoaHeads. He's looking for work. He posted this on LinkedIn today and asked me to give a shout out. So you can either, if you are hiring, Aaron's a senior iOS developer, you can either contact him directly on LinkedIn, Aaron Stevenson is his name, or let me know and I can pass along your details or his details.
Also plug Aaron as well. He's one of the best people with regard to accessibility. Knows his stuff inside and out. Done a fair bit with Braille as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. He's
an amazing person and definitely going to be an asset to any team.
Amy said it far better than I can, so hire Aaron is the moral of the story. Yeah. Sorry, what was your name?
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. Aaron or Giuseppe? So junior, senior.
Go for Aaron first. He sounds great. If he's busy, yeah.
Yeah. You can tag team. All right. So some conferences. DevWorld's coming up. This is super exciting. It's in Melbourne in May. It's as far as I know, the only iOS conference in Australia these days. Australia or New Zealand.
CFP's open.
CFP's opened yesterday.
Oh,
there's no tickets available yet, as far as I know, but keep an eye on. I think the AUC's website would have details.
Yep.
It's only just been announced, so I'll update you as we go throughout the months. Within a couple of months. It's also Deep Dish Swift. I didn't do this in date order clearly. That's also early May. That's in Chicago. Also, I'm sure going to be a great Swift conference, but obviously a little bit further from home for most of us. And then we're also looking forward to WWDC, of course. So that we expect it to be in June, but we don't have any details.
Be open for that too.
yeah, jobs.apple.com.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess stay tuned if it gets announced in the next couple of months. I'll keep you updated. A little bit of developer news. Xcode Cloud, everyone now gets 25 hours with their developer program membership. So previously that was kind of like a free trial, but I think the expectation was it was going to start, Apple was going to start charging for it. But they've announced it's now free. For most people working on sort of one or two small apps, I think, or even a small team, 25 hours is going to be plenty. So that's great news. Vision Pro launched in the US. Kind of cool, but probably none of us have. Does anyone have one in the room? Okay. Has anyone shipped an app for it?
I want to ship an app for it.
I want this to be interactive. What do you want to ship for it? I'm curious.
Details in my talk.
Okay, all right. Well,
Okay. Well, you got a good use for it.
Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned to find out. That's going to be good. The Swift Student Challenge is also open. Highly recommend if you're probably no students in the room just looking around, but if you are interested or you are a student, I'd recommend applying for this. It's kind of cool. It's kind of prestigious. It's a good challenge to set yourself a goal to build something. And you can win a developer program membership. And then Apple also say, it's a little bit mysterious, but they say distinguished winners will win a trip to Apple Park, which presumably is going to be like the WWDC student experience, but we don't actually know that for sure, I don't think. Yeah. Now, there was also changes to the App Store in the EU, or there's going to be changes. So as a result of the Digital Markets Act, Apple's changing things in iOS 17.4. So for the first time, third-party marketplaces will be allowed, which means you don't necessarily have to install apps through the App Store. They do still need to be approved and notarized by Apple. It's optional to opt into the new terms, and I think only available for EU-based developers, which is really interesting. So again, it's not super relevant here, but just kind of good to be on top of the news, I suppose. Like I mentioned, iOS 17.4 will support this. There'll be a reduced commission, so Apple won't take the full like 15 or 30% anymore. And I think that's reducing even more if you don't use Apple as the payment processor, like if you were to use Stripe or something. But there's an interesting core technology fee, which you'll be charged like €0.50 for every install beyond the first million. And that's on kind of like an annual basis. So that's interesting and would kind of affect, people doing business in the EU who choose to opt into these new terms. But I think it's particularly interesting because it will affect, or potentially will affect, more developers in more places as time goes on. Presumably other countries, other jurisdictions will will see this and use it as an example, and kind of, I imagine over the next few years, we'll see some changes. But I wanted to ask, would anyone opt into the new business terms if they were available in, say they are open to Australian developers? What do we think? No, a lot of no's.
Probably not at first, because it just seems a bit new at the moment.
Yeah, quite unknown.
And you get the feeling Apple is kind of digging their heels in so much.
Never seen so much sass in a press release. It was very, you can do this if you want, but we don't want anyone
So
to.
that was €0.5
Per install or like
Active
active
user.
user for,
which is way more than 30% if you get up in
Yeah.
high.
yeah.
They're taxing the successful ones.
If you've got a
That's right.
low-priced app,
Yeah.
Well, if you're
50%,
Facebook, right?
could be 50% on minimum.
What does Facebook pay Apple? $150 a year, $100 a year, whatever the developer program fee is. They're going to be paying a lot more, even if they only had to pay that for every EU user.
They've got lawyers.
Yeah, they have
In about
lawyers.
10 years, they'll spot it up.
But they don't have transactions. Why would they move to their own
Like what, sorry?
Facebook?
Oh, I mean, not necessarily. I'm not saying
Oh, okay.
Facebook would. I'm just saying if
Came
they
about from
were.
Epic Games not wanting to put.
Yeah.
their
Yeah, I
apps
don't know.
through the
Just
App
thinking
Store.
about Facebook, they
Yeah.
don't pay. through
Yeah.
their
No,
app.
and that's exactly right. I don't think it makes sense for an
Yeah.
app like Facebook, but maybe if Epic did the sums and a user was worth like 1/3 of their revenue was worth a lot more than 50 cents, it'd be worth it. I mean, I don't know.
Epic can't make 50 cents or 50 euro cents per user per year.
We're in trouble.
Yeah. Like, that's not a universal statement about free apps,
Yeah.
but monetized free apps.
Mm.
I also am concerned where the apps were downloaded from.
Yeah.
If they're not being controlled by Apple CDN,
Mm.
is there any there's no stipulations on the CDN the apps come from? And that could be a target of some other attack.
I guess that's where the notarization comes into it,
Yeah.
though, right? Like they're kind of saying that the binary we reviewed is going to match
Fine.
the.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess to an extent, Apple's still. I don't know. I actually don't know if it's on Apple CDN or not.
I haven't, they haven't said it.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
is.
Yeah. But presumably they can at least check that it's the verified.
But the lack of confirmation on it has me concerned.
Apple has the iPhone. They can have just the package name. They're gonna know how many installs they have.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I guess Apple wants this confusion, I assume.
Well, there's an awful lot of FUD that they're
Yeah.
throwing around. I mean, the type of FUD they're throwing around is like IBM levels from back in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it,
It's
it's big like
interesting to
install
see.
screens that say like I agree that, or it's like I agree this app is not approved by Apple or not checked by Apple, and because I think the thing is part of the review process is that Apple isn't going to reject things for like objectionable content. They're more just checking for anything malicious, and so there's no rules around like using someone else's intellectual property or I don't know about stuff that's illegal, but I guess anything that's safety related might not be allowed. Anyway, it's going to be an interesting one to follow, even if no one in the room is going to be directly affected or be able to install apps this way. So definitely be following that closely. All right, I think that's
You could have something that's pro-fascist, which is banned in some countries like Germany, which Apple will sign it, but illegal in Germany.
yeah. I think they have to. I mean, I don't know where the line is going to be, but it will be interesting.
It'd be really interesting for refunds as well, because people will then just be saying, well, Apple wouldn't give me a refund. Yes, but you bought it off them. It doesn't matter, because I'm telling people at Apple,
3 warranty, 3 to 3 seconds, you're on your own.
Yeah, honestly, though, that the refund thing better matches, I think, consumers' perception of refunds. I get emails semi-regularly saying refund this app. They just send an email with like refund this app. I'm like, I don't have any details about you. So even if I could refund you, I don't know how. But yeah, I generally have to say no. Apple is the one that handles billing. And I think the perception definitely is that the developers handling billing, at least amongst some amount of people. Yeah, but I think that's one of the things Apple warns about, that they will no longer handle billing and refunds and things like that. Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that before we move on to Amy's talk?
I think it's going to be really interesting.
It will be.
Break out the popcorn.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad we're not in the EU. We kind of just sit back and observe it from
I
afar.
like the different browser rendering engine options.
Yeah, sure.
That's
that's what most
No,
of
only to
the EU
be-
regulations affect
as well.
EU residents, no
Yeah,
matter
'cause
where
they
they
can't do
are in the world.
That's right. Yeah. So I think that's why it's not just location based. It's taking in multiple factors into account, I guess, to try and say that if you on a trip to Australia, you still have your access to your EU apps and
But they only charge which store your account is touched.
yeah, so they're looking at a few things. I think the store, your like your address, obviously physical location of the device.
No, but you have to tie to an Apple store. So you can't just go and buy an app from the Apple US store unless you've got an account with Apple US.
That's right. Yep.
So maybe they're using that or something.
Yeah,
Also,
one of
the
the-
hardware tag devices bought in the EU will only be allowed to do EU things.
Not exactly.
Yeah, that's.
No.
It's more. That was for me when I moved to Australia. I had to switch stores, and it took like a day or so.
Oh, no, I know, but there's things that they'll add into the hardware level. If you buy, if you buy an iPhone in Japan, you cannot mute the camera signal, sound. The snapshot, you can't mute that sound. If you buy an iPhone in the Middle East, in Dubai, you can't install, even if you blew it away without the configurator and put an IPSW from an Australian download, it wouldn't fail. The OS is tied to the country that the device is bought on as well.
Yeah,
They have that layer.
presumably that's a factor as well.
It's something that will, I've been there. I was in Dubai failing to store something. Like, why the hell is this failing? Down for now, sort of works.
That's interesting.
Because certain apps are banned in the Middle East that ship with the native OS. There's things like that there. So there is something that is
And
tied to the
China,
country.
and Russia, and.
Yeah, oh yeah. But EU as well.
I'm sure it'd be interesting to see the workarounds people go through.
Yes. Because Apple wouldn't give them the encryption keys.
Nice. Okay, cool. I'm going to pass over to Amy now. So, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so that's AirPlay TV engine.
Screen mirror.
That's the one.
Indian. Dum, dum.
5953.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
it's mirrored. I'm gonna go mirrored. Yeah, we'll just go mirrored. Have some fun. Command R does not work in Keynote. Yeah, things developers expect just to work, Command R to do whatever, does not work in Keynote. I'll have to file a bug report.
Good luck.
Yeah. Anyway, hi everyone. Good to see you all here in 2024 and up in Sydney. Yeah, I didn't do the first flight thing this morning, didn't fly in last night. I decided midday flight. I'm still on holidays. Yeah, taking a few months off, actually a really bloody good thing. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to my next job, which is coming up. Not going to say it on the stream, but everyone knows it. It's a me job. It's amazing. Looking forward to it. Okay. A couple of weeks back, I supplied a talk title to Zach and completely forgot about it. This happens very, very regularly. Yeah, so just make friends with MusicKit. Going to be talking about MusicKit, going to be talking about sharing, a bit about SwiftUI, and because we've got at least one other Mac dev in the audience, there is Mac OS and Vision OS, because I decided to say something to Zach before. I will make comments about that as well. If you want to keep in touch with me, my Mastodon handle is there. Otherwise, I do have a website that I put some blog posts up onto every so often, which is pretty fun. Now, apps are a social experience. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that they're something you do with friends. They're not something you do in isolation by yourself. You're always going to be talking about what you're doing. You're always going to be sharing content. You're always going to be trying to compete against friends in, say, Duolingo or something like that. Never look at Duolingo's code, sorry. Objective-C from the original days and nightmares. No, they're good people. A lot of friends, sorry. I'm in a super relaxed mood, which means I'm just going to be ad-libbing a lot of this, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. But social experience, so it's something you're doing with friends, you're doing it regularly, you're going, oh, I've just done this. I want to tell the world about it because I put it on Mastodon, which is pretty cool. And then you've got the other side of it, which is music is inherently social. It's not something in isolation by itself. Like throughout history, music is something you've typically gone to as an event. A lot of the time since stuff like vinyl, CDs, mini disc, cassettes, records, all of that. You're doing it in the home, but you're doing it on a system that broadcasts to other people in your home, typically family. A lot of the time these days, it's just you listening to music on headphones, but that music, if you hear something that's amazing, you want to share it with everyone. And this is what the talk is about. Okay, it was a dark and stormy night. As in one of those nights where you're just sitting at home and you have an idea and you go, well, okay, what if I was able to take the music I'm listening to and just very, very quickly share it with other people? So I listen to music on Apple Music because I am the epitome of an Apple fangirl. I will pretty much, people who know me well know that I'll be on top of everything going on and just gushing about it repeatedly and ad nausea. So yeah, listening to something on Apple Music and then trying to navigate the desktop app, music.app, to share it is an actual nightmare. You have to go up into the toolbar and find the three dots and you tap it and then you go shared track, which will bring up a share sheet, and you then go copy link or you go to a message or something. And yeah, it is actually a very, very convoluted process. So what if we could make that experience better? Thankfully, Apple gives us the tools to do so. Now, one of these things is MusicKit, but MusicKit itself has a lot of restrictions around it because it ties very deeply into the platforms, so macOS, iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, tvOS, visionOS, just Apple platforms in general. And what you need to do is you need to, once you've created an app and all of the profiles and identifiers, in developer.apple.com, the account, you go to the identifier, then you go app services, and you enable MusicKit. I've also got Shazam Kit and Weather Kit there in the same spot. Now, a lot of the time, if you're doing an indie app or sort of just creating a new project, everything is done for you via Xcode, which is really, really good. Those of us who have been around since 2008, 2009, know how frustrating and how many weeks, if not months, get spent on developer profiles and certificates for every application. Thankfully, it's a lot easier. So once you've got everything there, you then enable this as a service. Doing so allows you to give your app access to MusicKit. MusicKit exists on the platform as a runtime service and sort of acts as an intermediary between, say, your app. Then you've got the MusicKit service, and then you've got Apple's APIs that everything talks through. So it will do stuff like caching and all of that, and figuring out whether all of your different devices are at the same state and all of that magic in the background. And it's actually really good to prevent people from spamming Apple's APIs because they're first hitting this service, which has, which sort of sits there and does the caching and everything for you. It's a really good way of architecting something to take advantage of the platform as well as APIs and runtimes. WeatherKit works in the same way. I'm making a lot of assumptions about this because I'm not on the inside of Apple, I'm on the outside, and hey, if I built it, this is just how I would do it. Cool little segue. Why do you need to do this? Well, because you otherwise don't have access to all of Apple's services. MusicKit exists as an API, but if you want to talk directly to the API, say, go back 5 years and wanted to do it, you'd need to manage keys, certificates, refreshes, all of that ugly stuff, and no one wants to do that. Okay, so first thing, I can has music. Because you're interacting with a service on the platform, your app needs to request authorization. That's the first thing you need to do. So there's the music authorization type existing in MusicKit. It will have a current status property, which is the current status. It's a static variable. You also have the request function, again, static, in order to determine the current status and request it. Because we're all good developers, we then mirror Apple's stuff to something we control so we can have better, so that if for some weird and horrible reason we needed to swap out MusicKit for something else, we can do it without affecting the layers above. You also need to put an item into the info plist, which says this app is wanting to access MusicKit to do particular stuff. For the app I'm building, it's at the moment called Jukebox. It's not going to be released as that because Apple naming conventions and all that. Someone had that name ages ago. I need to try and think of something that's music related, sharing related, friends related, actually easy to understand and not already copyrighted.
Less than 3 letters.
Seriously? I have a response to that that's going to be after this talk. Okay, so you've now got access to all of your music. What music is actually on the jukebox? So what's currently playing? Apple gives us a really nice API for this, which is they give us a type we can use. We can create a request. This request is generic. The generic part of it is for the responses. So in this case, all I care about is the track. I don't care about, is it a music video, is it a song, is it an album, or anything like that. All I'm doing is going, give me all of the latest tracks. On that request, I set some parameters, say limit 1, because I only care about the latest one. And then using Swift concurrency, so try and wait, I get the response from the request. I make sure that it's actually got at least one item. And then I create a struct that is usable in the rest of my app, which is what I've got here. Because song is such a generic term, I've had to reuse it in my own SPM as well as in MusicKit, which is why you've actually got the namespace there. Cool, fun things. If you look at any of the, I think it's called a music item, is the base protocol for a lot of this stuff, so track, song, and all that. With those, how they handle the artwork, how they handle albums and everything is actually really, really nice. So when you request the URL for the artwork, you can go, give me something of a particular width and height. Because I've just been playing around with this at the moment, 400 a square, it works quite well. Not only can you use that sort of request and response there for getting your recently played, you can also do just generic queries on your music collection. Music catalog search request, used in much the same way where you create a request. Here, it's being provided a term, search term, however you want to populate that, go ahead and do it. Then you've got the types that come back. So song, music video, album, all pretty cool. You can customize this how you want it, which is really nice. Apple's documentation URL up there. That's pretty cool for understanding just what's going on. The fun thing is around, okay, we've got all of this data now. How do we present that to the user? Swift UI. Because it just makes sense for building a dynamic UI based on the data. Here we're creating a stack which has our image that is loaded asynchronously. While it's loading, it's just showing a progress view. When it's there, you've got the image that you're resizing to whatever's appropriate and sticking it there. Then the title and the artist, then a couple of buttons to do stuff like sharing or copying the URL, because that's what we're wanting to do. Because I am a Mac fangirl from ages ago, this is a preview running from the Mac OS target. If anyone hasn't watched Has Been Hotel yet on Amazon Prime, am I allowed to say that? Oh well. Yes, go watch it because it's amazing. The soundtrack, listen to it anyway. It is pretty much a musical, and I've had it on repeat for a couple of weeks. It's been definitely consuming every bit of brain power for me for the last little while. Cool, okay. Bit of a side journey into playback. So with Music Kit, you can actually use it to introduce playing of items from your music catalog directly in your app. You can either, if you say on iOS, use the system music player, which is what's available in music.app. And by doing that, if music.app is playing, you'll get all of that info in the system music player. You'll get your playback queue. All of that is just mirrored. You can also create an application music player, which is specific to your app. And it behaves like every other music player, but it is only available in your app. Why is this a good way of handling things over the old AV player stuff? AV player is still good for video and all of that, but application music player has its advantage because it's a lot closer tied with the system. Everything like control center, lock screen, all of that works and behaves automatically, so you get it all for free. Cool, okay. Zach?
Can I ask a question, or do you want me to wait till the end?
Ask away.
Those two things, do they provide UI as well, or is this just like calling into controls and current information?
This is only the control side of it. You
Okay.
still then need to provide your UI.
Okay, cool.
So that's again another difference between this and AV Player. AV Player gives you the controls, particularly if you're showing a video. and particularly because you'll typically, no, too many typically, so I'm sorry.
That's typical.
With AV player, you tend to have a view controller associated with it, and that's allowing you to show the view and the controls and all of that there. The music players are just there as interactions with the underlying stuff, not your UI.
Okay.
I haven't looked too much into whether there are Swift UI components for it, or even UI kit or app kit. It's all, yeah, I haven't looked too much into that. Cool, okay. Yes?
Well, so this music kit give you any option to just like have a like offline music as a like client, or because for like Apple Music you can have it offline. You need to like have a subscription. You just download. This guy gives you like an offline like option as a music kit, or
Like, okay. I'm going to be making a whole heap of assumptions here. Yes, it will handle offline because all of that content is already offline, and first it queries that stuff if it's available. So you'll have access to that, hopefully. Don't quote me on it. I haven't done the testing or the investigation myself, but there is a good chance you will be able to make use of it, yes.
but if they're offline, then you can download the music at your end on your local storage, and you can have access to their music, right?
Not sure. So
You're not actually getting access to the raw media files.
No.
You're controlling what's
you're
going on
controlling
the
Apple
APIs.
Music stack.
It's hidden behind the APIs. You don't.
Yeah.
You need
An
the
option to
AV
say
media player to
Yeah.
get to the actual raw part, which you can only do for stuff which isn't DRM encrypted.
Yeah, that's okay. DRM, all of that's
Hidden.
a bit of a tangent. Not going to get into that. Too many bad stories. Sorry. Okay, friends are just the best. So sharing. If anyone's looked at my Mastodon stream recently, they'll sort of see, oh, here's what I'm up to, and here's the music I'm listening to, which quite often tends to relate. Sometimes does, sometimes it's not. A lot of the time, it's just sort of, hey, this is what's going on for me at the moment, and yeah. I like friends, I like sharing stuff with them. This is all really, really good. The share sheet, Apple makes super easy to use via a share link view type in Swift UI. So what you can do is, if you've got something like a URL, you can just share that straight away. And Apple will provide a platform-specific sharing options back to the user. So for this is from a menu bar app on a Mac in that picture, and it's just presenting the share options. I've cropped the first bit because it's got my friends' names in it, but you get the general picture. You can do stuff like messages, anything else there, AirDrop, mail, whatever you want, it's right in there. URL is quite often a good sharing option. In one of my other apps, I've gone the extra step of creating a transferable type, which provides a whole heap of extra metadata to the share sheet, and also for sharing out to users as well, which is pretty cool. Like you can throw in stuff like album title, track playback position, all of that really, really fun stuff that makes a UI super delightful for the users, you can do. If anyone remembers UI Activity View Controller, it's a nightmare. You've got delegates, you've got data sources. It is just a pain to be dealing with. You even need extensions as well. Oh, I love share sheets and all that, but just using ShareLink in SwiftUI, so much better than having to deal with an activity view controller. Now, that's a multi-step process where you tap on the share and it'll pop up a sheet and then you go through that process. We want to make it better than that. Okay, different to that. The share sheets, I love how customizable they are and how integrated with platforms they are. Makes it work really, really well. 90% of the time, all you want to do is copy that URL. So you can do it by interacting with the pasteboard. Now, the other Mac dev in here tonight probably knows a lot of the ins and outs of pasteboard and the different data types you can use. And if you haven't looked at pasteboard, either NS pasteboard, UI pasteboard, and seen how customizable it is, you really should go do it because it gives you a good understanding of the low-level systems there. NS pasteboard only available on Mac, UI pasteboard everywhere else, including tvOS, iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, visionOS, all the other things that aren't Mac. Okay, so they are Mac. They aren't heavily reliant on AppKit. Let's just put it that way. Okay. So UI pasteboard, you get the general pasteboard, which is the system one where most things sit. In NS land, you call set data. You provide a string from the URL and then you encode it to data and you want to specify that it's a URL type. By doing that, what you're saying is not only is this a string, this string is usable in a context for a URL. So when you paste into an app, if the app goes, okay, I want to handle URLs pasted in this way, then it will go ahead and do it. It can format them how they want, rather than just relying on it being a string. So if you're ever putting anything onto the pasteboard, pay particular attention to the type you're associating with so that other users of the pasteboard can actually do what they want to do appropriately. So NSLand, you call set data. Everything else, you just have a URL property, which masks a lot of that for you, but it's also strongly typed. So URL expects a URL, an optional URL, that you then supply to it, which is pretty cool. Now the fun stuff. So command tabbing into an app, always an option in order to get data. Looking at your phone and using that to get what's playing on a HomePod or a TV or something, also an option. But if you're in front of a Mac, you just want a menu bar up, works really well. Thankfully, SwiftUI makes this super, super easy because when you create a scene, you can create a menu bar extra scene. You provide a name for it, you can provide a system image, and then you just build the UI as you would any other SwiftUI. Now, a few caveats there based on the style of what you're showing. For this, because I pretty much wanted to mirror the macOS app, I specified window. So it's just a window there. and then you throw in whatever view you want. It can be resized based on what's there, but pretty much that is the gist. Yeah, you can also sort of have a more classic menu bar style where it's just a series of items. Maybe that works based on the context of your application, but here I want to easily identify what the actual track or the song playing is, and then I want to have share and copy as the options, which is pretty cool. Okay, resources. A couple of really good resources for getting an understanding of MusicKit. My friend Rudrank, he travels around the conference scene a little bit, has a site called Exploring MusicKit, which is an amazing resource for understanding the framework, what you can do, how you can best make use of it. Apple's developer documentation, again, fairly good. Yeah, I'll throw all of these slides into Slack at some point. Remind me if they don't appear, but you should be able to grab all of the links from there. There are 2 really good WWDC talks if you enjoy consuming video content. Meet MusicKit from 21 and explore more content with MusicKit from 22. The 2022 one, so explore more content, has a lot of insights into generating playlists, customizing them, getting suggested content, a lot of this stuff that Apple Music does, but how to use it in your app. So that's a really good one to watch. Yeah. Okay. Now, as good as MusicKit is at the moment, a couple of pain points that I sort of see, and I think these are some good improvements. If there was an async stream of the recently played songs, that would make things so much easier, because at the moment, you just have to keep querying the library for what's recently played. It may or may not be up to date. If you could get a stream, so an async stream of those recently played items, then your app doesn't have to worry about the processing power of constantly querying based on, say, a timer or something like that. It will just be told, and that'll be amazing if that happens. Also, System Music Player on macOS would again be amazing. I think maybe because of how okay, this is again me making assumptions. How macOS exists as a platform probably makes this a little bit harder, but having it available would be really, really good. You could do so much more with the music playing app by having access to System Music Player. Okay, and that is it for the talk. I'm going to grab another glass of water and then we can have questions.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for the talk. Is there any API we can check if user has music subscription?
Okay. So one of the things question was, Siri activated, seriously?
There's an API for that.
There is an API for that, it's horrible. Okay, so the question was, do we have any APIs available to check if the user has a subscription? And then I'm going to expand upon that to also go, can we prompt the user to get an Apple Music subscription, which is pretty much Apple's marketing? And the answer is yes. MusicKit provides all of that. The documentation at developer.apple will cover it all. You can do things like check for offer status, subscription status, and all that. Bit more than what I was wanting to cover, and a fair bit of a tangent that isn't really the best thing, but yeah, Apple's Music Kit does provide all of that for you. Yep.
Yeah, I have a question. I want to see how much is like the Music Kit is like open as API. Can you transfer any album that you already created or favorite from the actual Apple Music to hand over to like your app?
Okay, so the question, and I'm hopefully going to paraphrase right here, is if you've got an album or a playlist or something that exists in Apple Music, I'm going to phrase it as expose it to your app?
Yeah, just like add my favorite list over there.
Yeah, yes. Music Kit is specifically designed to provide you with access to everything existing in Apple's music.app. Go, Christian.
I do want to clarify, and it kind of relates to the question you had before, like, does this work, like, does Music Kit require that you have Apple Music, the subscription, or is it just curing anything within the music app, like even if your local files without a subscription, is there a dependency there?
Okay,
You know?
and again, paraphrasing the question, if you don't have an active Apple Music subscription, what is available or exposed via Music Kit? The truthful answer is I don't know. My assumption is that anything you have created in music.app is going to be available because you've created the playlist, you've got all of those albums, all of that data there. So your Music Kit knows to query them, knows how to query them. So I'm hopeful that it'll all be there. Have I verified it? Do I know off the top of my head? Sadly not.
Just to speed up, I presume in that case, but as you say you don't know, I would presume now the share options are going to work. There's nothing known to share.
Yeah.
No URLs or.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
You could share it, but just not play it.
You can share your
Yeah, but
metadata.
what would the URL be?
Yeah, you would need to.
No,
It's just tag.
I don't think it's a query.
You need to tie it back to an ID that exists in some external music system. Yeah, there's nothing to share.
Yeah. I would need to be able to have a way of linking your,
Local
say,
content.
your CD ripped data or whatever it is existing on your local device across to Apple Music, which may or may not be there. You could still create a custom transferable type and do all of that. But artwork probably not there yet.
But point like if you use Apple Music and if you turn on the offline, Apple, if you look at you put the Charles proxy, you see that on the proxy just send the file IDs, which is like big ID, and this ID they're retrieving.
Yeah,
from
but that's
the
where you've got a
database.
subscription, so there is a handle even if you're offline.
Mm.
So there's metadata there even if you're offline.
I think even if you add like local music, Apple still tries to match it. It's able to.
It's hit and miss.
And I suppose an idea for your app, like if there is no link, you can just share the title and the artist instead. Or
Yeah.
Search criteria.
It'll be manual.
yeah, something like that, right? And you know, if Apple might try to match it with the title anyway, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways around that.
Do you know if there's any metadata that's responded on songs that might have explicit words or that, you know, like ratings onto that there that you might be able to then say, hey, I'm about to share this to someone who may not be an intended audience for that?
Okay, so is stuff like ratings and all of that idea where legal fuddy-duddies? Yes.
Right.
If you look at the documentation for song and album and all that, I recall seeing it there. I don't know explicitly whether it's called like explicit as property type or something like that. But yes, being Apple and being tied into all of the legal side of things and copyright and all of that, I assume that that information will be there. Zach?
Is Music Kit available on Vision OS, and have you
Yes.
played around with it?
No. Yes. So to answer your question from right at the start, because of the way SwiftUI works, all of this could just be a window inside Vision OS. So you could say, put that window up against your hi-fi speaker so that when you look at it, you know, oh, that's what's currently playing. That would be amazing. I would love it. I am yet to play around with a Vision OS device. This is something I would just love to do. I think I've seen a few other people attempt it. So it's definitely some prior workings there. And yeah, it's just one of those things that'll be pretty cool to see happen. Hopefully one day Apple will just steal the work and go, here, job offer, but I doubt that will happen.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions?
I would
Yes?
ask a question. So did you have any chance to run like instrument on the app when you add the music kit there, see like the memory footprint, how it's like impacting now?
Have I taken a look at memory footprint or anything like that? No. It is always a good idea to run instruments against an app. General best practices, but have I gotten things to that point? No. Probably ties into this idea of one of the improvements where having an ASIC stream from Music Kit would make things a lot easier, because if you're constantly trying to poll the system for information, you're not going to get system music player being everything apart from a Mac. Did it again, sorry. Everything apart from something built on AppKit means you could actually use that instead of your queries, because it's got a queue there. And having that queue, you can poll that, get the updates, and use that to drive your UI. Whereas if you're wanting to do something that's on a Mac OS environment, you need to look at the actual query approach. Yeah.
How often are you querying to get current information?
I did file new project on Monday. So at the moment, it is querying on view, on the .on appear. So the equivalent of view did appear in order to get that information.
But even within Apple apps, they're not always latest market. I've seen disconnects between what's playing on a HomePod, what's showing on the phone, and what's showing on the watch, and they're all supposed to be about the same track, and one of them is showing the wrong, or it's got the right track information but the wrong artwork for half a minute or a fraction of a second. It's random.
Yeah, and that's really the advantage and disadvantage of having an underlying system there handle it. The advantage is it'll cache it and do all of that performance work for you. Disadvantage is if it's wrong, you can't override it because you've got no other source of truth.
Cool. Another round of applause for Amy, please. Thank you. All right, so that ends the formal part of the meetup. Feel free to stick around if you like, have a chat, have another drink. But otherwise, hope to see you next month. And just a reminder, if anyone's interested in talking, please get in touch throughout the month. Thank you.